dear friends, you are welcome here, and we are telecasting our daily program Sabiki, that is the program of current affairs. Today, in this program, we will be discussing the anti-abortion law passed by Texas Senate in US. And as you know, this is a very reactionary law, and the US elite is backtracking from all its promises it has made earlier to not only to American people but to the world. We are not talking of Magna Carta. We are talking of its all proclamations on women's right and etc., and its recent proclamation, even of U.S. Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade. The judgment in Roe versus Wade says that women will have total right, absolute right, and control over body, and she can decide whether to give birth to child or to abort. Now, that Roe versus Wade is in fact reversed, first by legislative action by Texas Senate, and that is illegal. An illegal law is being passed to appease the church and to appease Catholic Church and Christianity. This new law, what they intend to pass, the heartbeat law, they say its nomenclature is heartbeat law. This heartbeat law, it is founded upon a wrong notion that within 6 weeks a heartbeat can be detected and life comes to a fetus within 6 weeks. So whether life comes or not, we will be discussing it, its scientific aspect also, but the most important is its social aspect and how women are going to take it. So in our studio today we are having three very esteemed guests, we can say, and they are social activists, and they belong to different walks of life. Let me introduce you to them. First is Angela G. Angela Sharma. Angela Sharma is a lawyer in UK, and she is a fighter for human rights and especially for women rights. Angela, you are welcome here to our studio.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you so much.
and similarly, you can see Miss Anju. Anju is an artist and a social worker in US. Anju, you are welcome here.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
You are welcome, and our viewers, I'm welcoming you on my behalf, on behalf of WSTV, and on behalf of our viewers also. And Nehaji, you are welcome. You all are well versed with Nehaji. Nehaji has been attending talk shows on our TV. Nehaji, you are welcome. You are most welcome here.
Hello. Good evening. Good evening.
Yes. So Neha Best, Anchilaji, and Miss Anju. So we with them we will proceed. Now, first question. My question is, and this question I would put to all of you three. My question is that how people in general and women in particular are taking this law in US, UK, and India, in your countries. How people in general are looking upon this law, this curtailment of right of women, this attack on human rights, and how women in particular are seeing this. First of all, I would like Angela ji, you kindly give your views on it, Angela ji.
Thank you. So I think the new law that's come in Texas, I think it's a direct attack on women in general. I think it doesn't give, although I'm pro-life and I believe that I believe in the procreation, but what I believe this law does is suppress what the general freedom of a woman is. This law is very strict. So what we see in this law is that you can't have an abortion after 6 weeks. Women generally don't know they're pregnant, in the first month at all. It also doesn't provide an exception where the women have been raped, whether there's been an ancestral relationship, and also it also has provided that other people in general can snitch. That's what we call it in England. They can't, if you're found to aid someone in taking, in aiding them into taking this abortion beyond the 6 weeks, it suppresses them, and also you can get penalized for it. So my view is that it actually goes against human rights and private life that we have. And that's how we would view it, and that's how I see this happening. Women just don't have, they must have the right, to decide what's right for them. Sometimes women, don't have the mental capacity of giving birth. What happens in that sense? So that's my view about this law. It's very early days. I do believe that there's going to be, we're going to see a surge of abortions which are illegally taking place against this law, and which may be dangerous for women going forward. But that's my view, on this law.
This was Angela Sharma, who was speaking about the viewpoint of women in UK regarding this new act that attacks, that assaults the very vital rights of women. All over the world, there is a reaction against this law. This law is being passed in the most advanced country of capitalism, the US, which says that it is the leader of democracy, the biggest democracy in the world. It boasts of that. So I would like to ask Neha ji, how women in India are taking it, and how this law is being looked upon in India in general also. Means how males and females are looking at it, and especially how women are looking at it. Neha ji, please.
Okay, Rajji. Good evening, everyone. The thing is that, and at the same time, it is regressive. It has thrown back the freedom and the rights of women back to the dark ages. And this is the opinion of all the Indian women in totality. Because, see, we are living in a very liberal society. And living in a liberal society and also dealing with various types of crimes against women, to have a law like this where the state is dictating whether you can have an abortion or not. It is simply taking the right of a woman to live from her. You're taking away her right on her own body. It is her right to decide whether she is going to be able to bring up the child into the world or not. At the end of the day, especially in third world nations like India and all, men very often desert the women, under challenging situations, or maybe there's some crime committed and all. There are so many women who are abandoned. Now, under those conditions, if a law like this comes into place and the woman is stuck with a child that she cannot support, whose life she cannot support in the world, it is totally against, it's like taking her right to live away from her. So, in effect, in India, and I'm sure in many other countries, it is being viewed upon as a very digressive, very regressive, and a very oppressive law. And at the same time, it is something that does not take into consideration the modern scenario that women are dealing with. Whether it comes to a liberal scenario of intimacy that is prevalent in the society, or it is in terms of crimes that are being committed. Either ways, this law just does not understand the current situations that we are existing in. So in effect, it is digressive and it is very oppressive.
Actually, yeah, I feel angry. I don't like it. I mean, we are moving forward, like we are fighting for women's rights, and there are so many things, like we have day-to-day struggles we have to face, and now this is like we are going backwards. So I am not liking it. I feel very bad, and it should be the women's right. It's women's body. It should be their right.
this was my question, that what view women in general are having, what attitude in women in general are having in US towards this law. You are absolutely right in that that it is not to your liking and to moral standards which you maintain, but how women in general are looking at it, trying to make. She is absolutely right in that. She is right in that Texas, so far as Texas is concerned, it has a different demography. Its population is population. Yes, its population is composed of weaker sections, colored races, poor people. So Texas, and with this I would like to underscore that Texas is a state which has in population, in terms of population, it is number 2 in US, second number, and it houses, yeah,
poor people over there. They don't have actually that many resources. And if these kinds of laws they will make, then those, I mean, they will have to, suffer. Their health will suffer, and they will. What I read, that they're going to neighborhood states to get abortions done, and all the abortion centers, they have closed temporarily.
less privileged population is there, and they would be the worst sufferer. What Anju is trying to the point she is trying to make is this, that the Texas people, who are comparatively poorer as compared to other states, and it is the most populated, population density is in Texas is maximum in US, and it is number 2 state which houses a number 2 population of US, the one of the biggest states in US. So the entire population, half of its population is going to suffer. Women are going to suffer if this law remains in place. So we all our 3 guests, they are agreeing that this law is reactionary law, it is a regressive law, and it attacks on democratic rights of women. The rights, the very fundamental rights, that includes the right over her body, the right to decide whether she is to bear the child or not to bear the child, whether she is to reproduce herself or not to reproduce herself, that is her right. So nothing can be imposed upon women against their will. So this is attack on a most vital, most important democratic and human right. So our all three are agreeing on this. Now I would like to know whether the moral this law, if we look at this law, don't you think that this particular law, it indicates a sort of moral and intellectual bankruptcy of US ruling elite, and not only US ruling elite, but all of its sections, including Republicans, including Democrats, who are not seriously opposing it, who are opposing it only to save their face, they are not seriously opposing it. So Angela, what do you think about it?
I was going to say that, that from what I understand and I'm reading about the general view in Texas, and not just Texas, surrounding area and worldwide, it is a very regressive law. But I believe that not just I believe, I view this as having a detrimental effect on society. Where women, you're right, where women don't have the choice of over her body, or whether to bring a child into this world. She has that fundamental right, and the impact of having a child is huge. You're going to have relationships that may not have a father. You may have a relationship where they've been raped. You're going to have, so there's going to be so many stems of this, which is going to have an impact, even on, the health system, on schooling, and also, just to say that other states within the US are going to deploy this. So 7 other states in the US are going to deploy this law going forward. So where women are thinking they may jump to another state to have an abortion, that, we've got to look at whether they can do that, where their residence is in Texas, because whether the law also penalizes and having an abortion outside of the state, that's something that they can't possibly do. So, but just going back to your precise question, of how this is going to impact, people going forward, and women generally, and males, it's going to be a huge impact on them, where women don't have the general consensus and that right being taken away from them. This is going to have an impact on mental health, which we always talk about and is a big hot topic everywhere at the moment. And not just general mental health of the individual giving birth and the mother, but the father and the child, where people possibly can't support or have children. How are they going to, what are they going to do going forward? Bringing up a child where they can't, possibly bring them up and they can't support them. So there's different streams of impact, which I believe is what we're going to see coming in the next couple of years, which is going to be impacted by this law.
Mr. Greg Abbott, he has talked on this law, and he has supported this law, and amazingly he claims that this law doesn't curtail the right of women, rather it gives right to women to abort within 1.5 months, within 6 weeks. So this is something very mischievous also. He says that within 6 weeks she can abort. Within 6 weeks she cannot even come to know that she is having pregnancy. She cannot come to know. She reasonably can't be expected to come to know that she is having pregnancy within 6 weeks. Hardly she can come to know that, and within that time she has to take a decision. Immediately thereafter she has to take a decision. So this claim of Texas governor and his support that is based upon this claim that this law gives a right to women to abort within 6 weeks of pregnancy is so mischievous, and is a mockery of in fact the concept of rights. Nehaji, how do you look upon this very farcical claim of Texas Governor Mr. Greg Abbott?
Okay, I was listening to Angela and Anju, and I totally support their argument. The thing is that, in my opinion, what I view this, of course, is a biggest sham to say that in 6 weeks you can you're allowed to abort the child. 6 weeks is no time. It takes time for a person to take a life decision. This is a life decision that a woman takes, and 6 weeks is too little a time for her to feel the pressure of. The thing is, this thing is absolutely unethical. This law is unethical because, in effect, it objectifies the woman. It treats her as a tool. It doesn't treat her as a living human being who has emotions, who has a mind, and who has a right in her life to lead the life that she wants to lead. Now, what Anju was saying, the point that she was making, this is unethical even in terms of the fact that it opens Pandora's box of crime. Now, this particular law, once it is through, because see, people are going to do what they are going to do. There are going to be accidental pregnancies. There are going to be crimes. There are going to be relationships that are not going to be good. You cannot change that scenario, and it has been there for hundreds of years, and it is going to continue. The point is that by making this law, they are pushing abortion into secrecy. Once abortion is pushed into the veil of secrecy, what effectively happens is that quacks come into the into play. People who are not medically equipped to handle abortions, they will start offering the services, etc., etc. And the underprivileged section is both the mother and the child. Their life is going to be put into danger. That is what Anju was trying to say, that for the underprivileged section, it is going to be a huge, huge path of crime that they are going to step into if this law comes into existence. Now, as Angela said, that there can be any scenario of pregnancy. By making a law like this, you are not considering the scenario under which a woman has become pregnant. Now, by doing this, you are in effect objectifying the woman. You're just treating her as a piece of flesh. Okay, fine. She is pregnant. 6 weeks में she is going to decide whether she is going to have the child, not have the child, and that's it. The things don't happen like this. There are times when even in the 4th month, it is detected that the child is unfit to survive in the world. Maybe the child has some mental disorder, some autism, some physical challenges the child is facing that are going to make the child unfit to survive in the world as it
and
is.
even
So
the factum of pregnancy, she would be knowing only after 4 weeks.
Yes.
So she would be left with no time
Yes.
to take a decision.
Absolutely. So you cannot have a life if impacting decision to be made by the woman in just 6 weeks, in which 14 days to वैसे ही निकल जाते to detect the pregnancy.
Yeah, true.
I think furthermore, the time scale is unreasonable. I mean, look at think about 6 weeks. You're right. 4 weeks. 4 weeks. You find out the best scenario. You find out you're pregnant in 2 weeks, and then you go ahead and you make a life decision that actually you're going to have an abortion at 4 weeks, right? So what about if a clinic isn't available in those next 2 weeks because they're so inundated with appointments for this? They're not medically equipped. So
yeah, they don't give appointment right away.
I know in the US, you have to have appointments. So what happens in that scenario where you have decided you have to make a quick decision after 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 5 weeks that actually you want to terminate, and you won't be able to get a appointment after the 6 weeks because you only have a 6 weeks threshold. So it's very unreasonable timescales.
And surprisingly, it works against whatever the thought process of the Senate is. It also the pendulum swings on the other side also. Maybe there is a couple, maybe there is a girl who, if given the right amount of time to decide, might plan to go through with the pregnancy. She might want the child, but by putting that pressure of 6 weeks on her, by putting her in a rush, and maybe she's in a certain mental state wherein at that point of the time she's not wanting it. So you're putting that pressure and you're making her abort a child that she might have decided to have later on if the time pressure was not there. That is the other side.
I'm in agreement with that because this scenario of 6 weeks, the time scale is so unreasonable for a woman. It is. Having gone through that process, having children myself, one experiences and knows that actually after a certain amount of time you realize you're pregnant. Then you have to have the mindset, because your hormones are all over the place, because you think how you're going to deal with this news. You're pregnant. You become startled because you think you're bringing a new life. So it doesn't give women it doesn't prepare them to make that decision within that 6 weeks. What it does is
there are so many factors.
There is, and the thing is, if you do decide to go ahead because you're in a rushed point of the time that you have, you might make the wrong decision that you've got to live with the rest of your life.
So the pendulum swings both sides. The woman might decide to not move forward with the child if given the right amount of time. 6 weeks is no time. 6 weeks, if you just, and especially if you add to it a situation of crime, if you add to it a scenario of a bad relationship or crime or any kind of other situation, or maybe, a casual intimacy. So all of these factors make it even more difficult for a woman to decide in a span of 6 weeks whether she wants to have the child or doesn't want to have, whether she's equipped also.
And this is not the end of the nightmare. The nightmare, it's the beginning of the nightmare. One state, Texas, has passed this law, and at least 2 dozen more states are there in line to pass such laws. They are ready with their drafts. Many states are ready with drafts. They were saying what happens to the Texas law, and Texas law is now endorsed in a impliedly endorsed by High Court of Texas, and the Supreme Court in appellate bench of Supreme Court also, with a majority of 5 to 4, this law is endorsed. They have refused. Supreme Court has High Court has refused, and Supreme Court has refused to stay the implementation of this law, and this law is duly implemented from September 1st. So I would like to come to Anju. Anju, how do you look at it? There is a big possibility of a more wider and broader assault upon rights of women in at least 2 dozen states, and this is the matter of utmost concern. There would be a more broader assault. So how you look at it, and how women are looking at it, how they are looking at the prospects of this more broader attack in US?
Actually, law.
Because US newspapers are reporting it. US newspapers are saying, US media is saying that at least 2 dozen states are ready with the similar drafts of law, and even these drafts, they contain more stringent provisions. So how do you look upon it?
Just to add in there, I think the general view from all the women that I've spoken to is that it's, it is against their rights as women. And I think it goes against the principles of having the freedom of deciding what to do. And, so hence the people that I have spoken to, and the view that they keep, is that this is unreasonable. It's wrong to have this kind of law. And I believe from what I read, and I read about the US and the newspapers, again, the women have that general view that this suppresses their own right over their body, and their choice. Their freedom of choice has been taken away from them. And this is the fundamental thing here, about women having their voice, women having that decision. We see that that's fundamentally been taken away from them.
I would say it's inhumane. It's against the woman completely. They are just trying to control women, whatever the possible way.
Don't you think it's a turn to an about turn to patriarchy, from democracy, from capitalism to patriarchy to medievalism? It's it's an about turn. What, Nehaji, you think about it?
I totally agree with you, Rajesh ji. This is it is like pushing the entire process of progress back to the dark ages. Dark ages where people had no rights, and the patriarchy meaning the toxic patriarchy, the patriarchy that wants to control everything, everyone's life, everyone's voice, where nobody is free. That kind of a patriarchy we are moving to. Have a question also, that bringing up a child in the world is not just the job of a woman alone. The man is equally responsible for it, in giving that good grounding space and rearing up of a child. Now when the Senate is making this, I am very, very amused and very surprised that there is no mention of the man over there. What is the man's responsibility? What is the state's responsibility? If you're forcing a woman to have a child under any duress and any condition, maybe that she's not equipped to handle, maybe she doesn't have the finances, maybe she has certain obligation and she's not fully equipped to go through with the pregnancy or have the child. Is the state supporting the woman? Is the state committing to pay for the child's lifetime expenses in order to support that woman? A. B. Where is the man? Suppose it's a crime committed. It's a crime and a woman has been raped, or it's a bad relationship. Where does the man figure out? Is the law also making it mandatory for the man to be with the woman in case she goes through with the pregnancy? When the law is not bringing these aspects into play, is not what do you say, defining the role of the man and the state in that pregnancy, how can the state declare the woman that you have no right to take charge of your life by deciding whether you want to move through with it or no? That is the flaw in the law, in my opinion.
This law, Nehaji, is containing very stringent provisions also. It says it promotes, in fact, vigilantism and bounty hunting, insofar as it stipulates and provides that any person, even unconnected with the woman or such pregnancy, with such birth or no birth, abortion or no abortion, he can file a suit. He can bring a lawsuit, and minimum bounty he can expect to get, that is $10,000. So for this $10,000, the gangs have started operating in Texas. They have they have floated online forms informing their cohorts and their members of the gang that you fill in the forms and intimate us if there is an abortion, there is a there is some even pregnancies. They are saying that you intimate us pregnancies. So this would be a very wide assault upon not only individual women but upon women as a whole. There would be a sort of very I would say barbaric vigilantism and such sort of hunting for a bounty that they can legitimately expect to get from the court after filing this lawsuit. So this sort of means provisions this law is containing, and even then people like this Greg Abbott, who is governor in Texas, they are shamelessly supporting it, and they are saying that this law doesn't take away the rights, rather it gives the right to women to abort within 6 weeks. So they are making mockery of women and women's rights. So
it's not just the women's rights. It's, you have opened a pitara of a Pandora's box of crime now. You know, like you were describing the entire scenario right now. This is one side of the crime where there are going to be financial scams, and there are going to be blackmails and ransoms and whole lot of other things. On the other side, you will have unethical practices of secret abortions taking place. Where the woman's life and the child's life is in danger. So in effect, you open a Pandora's box of crime. Nothing else you have done.
So I think this happened in the UK, okay, and the UK then introduced, because before, I don't know whether you recall, in England we had a similar law where you couldn't abort, and we saw these unethical practices where children were being aborted. We saw it had the impact, the detriment of to the women, and also if we look back at that as an example, a lot of women were in danger. They did have children where they were the unwanted children. There were mental impacts and stress on generally, and however the UK introduced their laws in 1967, putting down in place that after 27 weeks you're able to make that decision. So if we look back at as an example to what happened at that time, where it was very strict in the UK to abort, and there were unethical practices where, dangerously acting and aborting. But it, what it does is, this practice, like you said at the very beginning, Neha, it regresses, it digresses from where we are, and how far we have, fought for human rights, for, human rights for women as well, and our rights of generally standing up. It suppresses us, and it's such a such a way of going backward, rather than going forward in society. And they should have taken examples of such such practices within the UK and how that had an impact. And
exactly, history is there to teach us what not to do. History is not there to tell us to repeat all the crimes and all the negative scenarios that have unfolded. If we know that there is a war that has happened, or if we know that this is a scenario that has already unfolded in the past with these kind of results, in any which way, the more autocratic the system gets, the more it paves a path towards secret alliances, secret activities, which are not safe, which are definitely not safe. So under this thing, I think women's life has been put into danger. A child's life has been put into danger. Not just the human rights, it's the life has been put into danger. That is the thing.
But again,
all of us are agreeing, our esteemed guests and me as an anchor, all of us are agreeing that this law will have criminal consequences and very bad consequences for women who would be whose a simple act of exercising their rights that would be criminalized, and gangs of criminals would be extracting bounty out of that. So that is there. Now, Angela, I want to put a very specific question to you, that in this judgment, in this decision of Roe versus Wade, Supreme Court of US has very clearly come to the conclusion that it has declared that it is absolute right of women over their body, over their fetus, over their decision to abort or not to abort, to give birth or not to birth. It would be their absolute right. Now, that judgment has been simply bypassed. It is not overturned, it is not touched even, it is not referred to. That is simply illegally, totally illegally, unlawfully, I would say, it is bypassed under pressure of right wingers in US. US Supreme Court, while declining to stay this law, has refrained from making any reference to Roe versus Wade. That was a constitution bench decision of US Supreme Court. That is simply bypassed. This is one question. And my second question is, all right, you answer this question, I will put a second question to you, then I would come to Anju.
So
they have in fact illegally bypassed that judgment that they couldn't have bypassed. They should have referred to it. They should have dealt with this judgment. They should have acted in spirit of that judgment, in consonance with direction of that judgment. They have gone against it and without referring to that judgment, Roe versus Wade.
Yeah. So I think you're right. They have bypassed the law and they've gone straight to a judgment in Supreme Court. And I believe there's such a it's a new law. You're seeing other states come forward and deploy the same law. But I think what we're going to find is that people are going to see how they're going to, maybe appeal that and see how, we can, how can the Supreme Court make such a judgment by bypassing such a stringent law that was passed, giving women the rights. And now what it's doing is actually taking that without making a reference to that law. You're right. So I don't have an straightforward answer, because I believe that they should have dealt with that. It's illegal for them not to have dealt with that judgment, and I believe that by not doing so, they have left a gap for for someone to actually make make the rightful application and challenging that. That's the only answer I have.
In declining stay against this law has overstepped its jurisdiction, I would say, and has deliberately overlooked the law as it existed, and the law that was binding Supreme Court. This law, Roe versus Wade, was binding upon this judgment, but it has gone beyond all frontiers of law to allow this law made by Texas Senate. Now, the question is this, and very important. Now, this question, next question, is having a political edge also. I would like to put it to you, Angela, and then I will put the same question to Nehaji also and Anjuji also. Now, the question is this, that it was a very thin majority, 5:4. 5 judges were in favor of declining the stay, 4 judges were in favor of a stay against this law. They found that law is totally illegal, but 5 judges with one judge, one majority, one judge majority, this law was implemented. So there was a very thin margin for that. Now the question is this, that Democrats are accusing Republicans. They are accusing Republicans that Republicans were having majority in Texas Senate and they have brought this law. Now the question is this, that Democrats were having majority in US Congress and they could have codified the law in Roe versus Wade. They could have brought a law, they could have brought a legislation in Congress in favor of the right of women. That they did not do, that they deliberately did not do. Even now, they can bring this law, but they are not bringing the law in Congress. If Congress passes such law, no Senate can overturn it, and then it would become a law applicable to entire US. But they are not doing it. They at no point of time they have done it. What do you think about it, Angela? What sort of a nexus between the two parties is there to defeat the rights of women?
I'm not. I mean, Texas is a very, defined state in terms of the way that they act politically. But from my thinking, is that if the Texas, the way that they've decided this, were incorrect, we would have seen we wouldn't have seen other states follow suit. Politically, it's a very the Republicans, like you said, there was the majority that said, but in terms of the way that they formed this, my view is that I think we would have had. I mean, had we had the same majority, in somewhere like New York, would have been passed. Why Texas? Why would we have a Texas state defining the laws for the entire, for some other states of, within the US? I find Texas law in this is very biased. Politically, the way that Texas is a very old, and quote me if I'm wrong, Anju, because you're from the US, I'm not. So quote me if I'm wrong on this. The way that they politically work in Texas is very different to the other states of the US. So, by answering your question, it's a difficult one. We've got Texas who set the precedent for other states, and yet Texas is a very, digressive, state, as I believe in certain laws. Anju, is that right? I mean, because that's how I believe Texas is.
Yeah, you're right.
So we have. So that's answering some of your question, some element of your question, because we've got Texas who's digressive in certain laws, the way they set things. It's a very Christian law as well.
Yes.
It's not a very, it's not. Yeah, it's a very Christian state, and this is a very Christian thing, to see.
Yes, Angela, here I would like to interject and to say that it is not only Texas, it is the Texas High Court also and the Supreme Court of US also. The 9-judge bench with majority, it has cleared the law, it has cleared the operation of the law. So it is not the Texas. Texas alone can't be segregated. Texas alone can be accused of it. It is the highest apex institution of US that has become so decadent, that the bourgeois democracy in US, is decaying to the extent that the apex institution is putting its seal upon a law that is so regressive that takes away all fundamental rights of women, even upon our body. The last right of women is taken out, and court is looking at it with indifference, rather supporting the law with by majority. So this is there. So Texas alone cannot be accused of it. And yes, and yes, you want to say something, Angela?
So I was going to say that, in terms of the UK, we have certain human rights and we have right to privacy and all of this stuff, all of the articles that we rely on.
Right.
We have, obviously, we can go to the European Court, and also, raise our challenges in that court and submissions. Now, in the US, where the Supreme Court has made this, Anju, is there equivalent of that where you can bring challenges where such a law is against human rights?
Yeah,
An appeal, but that appeal would be of no consequence because by majority Supreme Court has already cleared this law. So just to save their face, now the Department of Justice must be bringing this appeal. This appeal would have no fate in Supreme Court because Supreme Court has already given its verdict. It has declined a stay on the law. So that is in its place. Now let us see how this majority has worked in Supreme Court. I have some data, so I must put it before my guests and then know their views on it. These 5 judges, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Conroy Barrett, these 5 judges who have ruled in favor of not granting a stay, they have a history, and in that history both Republicans and Democrats are indicted. In fact, when Clarence Thomas was appointed as judge of Supreme Court, Joe Biden was heading a judicial inquiry committee against him. He was chairman of that committee, and Joe Biden has exonerated him in inquiry despite presence of all evidence against Clarence Thomas, where Clarence Thomas was accused of sexual harassment and on other charges, charges of bribery and corruption. But Joe Biden, who was heading the committee then, has cleared him, and after that only he became the judge. Samuel Alito, 18 Democrats alongside Republicans had supported this candidature of this Samuel Alito, judge, US Supreme Court. So Democrats are equally guilty of appointing such judges who are reactionary, who are totally regressive in their views. Then Brett Kavanaugh was elevated in 2018, concealing his the right wing past, the fascist past he is having. So that was suppressed, and the Democrats never protested. Neil Gorsuch, he was promoted by a Republican, Mitch McConnell, who prevented appointment of judges at right time, and Democrats did not protest, and after that Neil Gorsuch was appointed. Similarly, Amy Conroy Barrett, she was appointed by Donald Trump in the last 2 months of his presidency. There is a tradition in US that in the last months of presidency, the president does not nominate, does not elevate any of the judges, and only the new president does it. But breaking that custom, breaking that tradition, Trump has Trump has done this. So and Democrats kept silence on this. So Democrats are equally guilty. If these 5 judges, these reactionary judges, Supreme Court of US has become so reactionary to attack women's rights, so Democrats are to be indicted at par with the Republicans. It is not that Democrats can seek a bailout of this. So Anju, how you look at it? How Nehaji, Nehaji, how you look at it, how you see it, whether this hope, this I think what Anju is saying, it's an illusion because at the top rungs of U.S. administration,
Yes,
U.S. power,
I totally believe.
yes,
Yeah, I totally believe what you're saying. Then, in my opinion, politics may at the top everybody is one. They're all in it, hand in glove with whatever is happening. So you cannot say that just because the party that has been in the active front of making
and
it is the
especially
only
these two
one to
parties,
blame.
especially these two parties, Democrats and Republicans, they both are
Exactly. The
representing
other
the
party who is
big
yeah, the other
business
party,
of U.S.
yeah. The thing is the other party who is passively supporting it by not opposing it is also equally to blame for whatever is happening. That is the thing with the politics. Politics is not just about the front that takes the active action. It is also the front that is not taking the active action by being passive supporter of it, by being quiet on it. So the entire political system is in it together in making this law. Now, women are the sacrificial goat over here because it is our right that is going. It is the crime portal against us is going to get intensified in the coming times. So the women are the sacrificial goats over here, and the entire system is in it together. This is the thing.
Our guests have thrown lights on different aspects and different corners of this law and its implications, social implications, political implications, and legal implications. And we must thank our guests who have attended, who have obliged us by attending this talk show, and hope they will be accepting our request to attend this show in future also. So we thank them all. Thank you very much, all of the guests,
Thank you so much.
all of you three,
Thank you too.
for attending this show and addressing our viewers, throwing light on each and every aspect of this law. So, dear friends, this was how this is how the elite, the ruling elite of US, is carrying out a broad assault against women, not only in US but everywhere. You can see women are against this law, against this assault. They are registering, they are protesting. Protests have taken place not only in US against this law but in Europe also, and women are up in arms. That is resistance, and this resistance will bring something, any illusion that the ruling elite of US would interfere in that, or US elite would reverse it. That may not be correct, because that decadence that US imperialism has suffered from, that is telling, and that is a fact, that is a reality of our age. And we can't expect that a US elite is now going to backtrack from this reaction in which it is mired into. So thank you very much. Thank you, viewers for supporting us and for attending this. We will be conducting this sort of show with our esteemed guests who attended today and future also, and expect that this fight which we have initiated through this forum of WSTV, this you would take forward, you would share this video, you would take it to your friends and comrades. So with this I take your leave, dear friends, thanking once again our guests, and okay, good night friends,
Thank you.
good night.